This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. Every week we talk about the Rovers' latest attempts to climb the SPFL ladder, but sometimes even a ladder won't reach. DIS are specialists in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repair and more, right across Scotland. So if you need a rope access specialist and you want a premiership service, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more. Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. Now, today is 1st of October, which does actually mean it's our first anniversary of the podcast. Time's flown by, been an absolute riot doing these. We've all, as a podcast group, we've had a lot of fun doing them. Just getting to know wider Rovers fans, opportunities that's been brought up. We thank you all for the sort of kind feedback that we've received today, which has been brilliant. To celebrate, we do have something a little bit different. Now, you might recall that a couple of months back, John Greer kindly provided us with the audio that he did of an interview with Marvin Andrews as part of the Reminiscing Raith sessions. And those are done in conjunction with the Community Foundation. Now, John has just restarted those. They are every second Thursday, held down at Somerset Park, where they offer you a bit of lunch, a chance to meet with Rovers legends, people connected with Scottish football, and really just a chance to have a bit of a blether, get out of the house. So one of the ones that he did recently alongside Big Marv was actually another famous Rovers centre-back, a legend down at Somerset Park, and that is Mr. Laurie Ellis. Now, Laurie Ellis, no stranger, 3 spells with Raith Rovers, numerous high points, including that game up at Dens Park with the bullet header that everyone will fondly remember in the Scottish Cup. Talks really, really candidly about his time both in youth football, coming to the Rovers in his first spell under Jimmy Nicholl, the sort of trials and tribulations that he had with the likes of John McVeigh, returning later on under Gordon Dale for a season, and then finally his final spell, which ultimately culminated in him winning the second division title under John McGlynn, a Scottish Cup semi-final, Derby goals. We also had, as I say, Scottish Cup semi-final with the header at Dens Park that I mentioned before. So really it's an opportunity for Laurie to just go back over his career and discuss it with John. Really interesting interview, and we hope that you enjoy it. And if you do need more information about Reminiscing Raith sessions, what we'll do is I'll make sure that there is a link below. Those are held every second Thursday, and there's more details that will be found on social media. But I hope that you enjoyed the interview.
So obviously we're delighted to have another Raith Rovers legend, a man that made 395 appearances for the club, scoring 15 goals, not least the wonderful header at Dens Park in the quarter-final that we love. But Laurie, tell us, you have a story about where your first pair of football boots came from, and start off by telling us that and what age you were.
Thanks, John. Well, thanks very much for the invite this morning. It was lovely to get regular calls from John. He likes to pester me in his free time, So we have a wee chat and we'll catch up about things. And he's mentioned coming over to visit for quite a while, and I've got quite a busy schedule at the moment, but it was always a priority to get over at some point. So it's lovely to be here, and thanks very much for the invite. So story about my boots. God, you're gonna work my memory hard today, aren't you? That is for sure. I was coming over to the car thinking, right, okay, I'm gonna need to get you to jog me a few dates. It's just a lovely story really about my first boots. My gran lived up at Dunakeer Estate, and I've always been I was born in Edinburgh. I've always lived in Edinburgh on the east side, Portobello. I had 3 years in Glasgow when I played with St Mirren. But apart from those 3 years, I've always been on the east side of Edinburgh and always commuted to Kirkcaldy when I played here. But we had strong family connections in Kirkcaldy, and my gran was a nurse and travelled all over the world nursing. And in fact, my mum was born in Zambia when my gran was nursing in Zambia, but she finally settled in Kirkcaldy, and I used to visit every weekend up to Dunakeer from when I taught right up, and I've still got my wee go-kart that I used to nip up and down her side passage and drive and time it for the front to the back and back down again. And so she bought me my first pair of boots at the old Intersport down in the Promenade when I was like I don't know, maybe 7 years old. In fact, younger than that, 5 or 6. She died when I was 7.5. So, I remember the store well, and I used to visit it regularly after that. And I've still got them. They're falling apart. Like the plastic and everything. They're so brittle that I had my son put them on one day just for a bit of fun, and he took 2 steps in them, and they were all cracking and falling apart. But I've still got them, and I'll never lose them. But that's a wee pair of miters from down in the old Intersport,
So,
on the promenade.
Do you think we'll see you on the repair shop getting them fixed?
Quite possibly, but if I do go on it, I'll be bringing you along with me. Okay.
Good, right. So, Portobello High School was where you kind of start. Oh, hello. Yeah.
Is there another one? No.
The other one's batteries have gone, so we'll just hand it back forward. Portobello High School was the first place that you really started playing football after your primary school days, and I think I'll jog your memory. There was a couple of players that played with you there, Charlie King, that went on to play for St Johnstone Brechin and that. I'm sounding like a right stalker now. So they were guys that you played with, and then you went on to Salvesen and then Links United. So tell us about these days.
Yeah, so I was at Portobello High School, and Portobello High School was always well renowned for quite a few players coming through and becoming senior. But I was never in all the years that I was there, I was never one of the prominent players within my year group. And looking back, with what I know now, there were several reasons for that. I was a late developer. A lot of my friends had beards before I'd even sprouted, so I was a late developer in that sense, and I struggled a bit physically with that. So there was Charlie King, there was Scott Bannerman, who went to Hibs, Mark McCulloch, who went to St Johnstone, Gordon Brown went to St Johnstone. There were several players within my year group. A lad called Aaron Cummins was up and down at Man United every Easter holidays, and that was just flying under the radar. I was way below them in terms of my progression at that time. And so I didn't do any of the Easter trips to senior clubs. I was never on an S form, and I just worked away in the background. But really looking back, it was because I was a late developer, and I'm working with kids at the moment that are in that same position where, they might be sharp and lively at, 10, 11, and then puberty comes along, and they really struggle for a few years with mobility and with just their body changing and aches and pains, and we never had any sort of input towards that. So back then I was just not good enough because I couldn't compete physically, and I was slow. And then there was a funny story about so Jimmy Nick, obviously my first manager here, he did a sportsman's dinner, as we all know Jimmy loves to do. So it was over in Edinburgh, and it was I think it was an Edinburgh Council thing, and one of the Edinburgh Council employees was my coach at a club called East Mills when I was 14. And he said, he went up to Jimmy and he said, Jimmy, brilliant, great to see Laurie's doing well, really pleased for him, we just never ever thought he was going to be quick enough. And Jimmy turned around and said, quick enough, we can't slow him down. So that was an example of the period where I couldn't move between 14 and 15, and all these lads at Portobello High School that were kicking on to Hibs and all the other clubs, they were flying, and they were early developers. And then just through having a sort of a good mindset and sticking at it, and never ever letting anything kind of get me down or faze me, and my dad keeping me stable and just saying, don't worry, you keep plugging away. Because of that, then when my body caught up with myself later on, I was able to fly. And you mentioned Links United. Links were a really prominent under 16s to 18s. They had a really prominent team in Edinburgh. They used to do really well in Scottish Cup and whatnot every year. And that was my jump to playing in a really good team, even although it was just boys' club. And that's when I ended up getting selected for the Scottish Youth Football Association. We played a game in Northern Ireland against Northern Ireland, and we then, with a warm-up fixture to that up at Glenrothes, remind me of the junior pitch. Warrout. Yeah. So we had a warm-up game at Warrout, and I was 16, maybe 17, and Alex Smith was, it was a Sunday, and Alex Smith's wife at the time, so Alex Smith was Jimmy's assistant, so Alex Smith's wife had wanted to go into Kirkcaldy to Rejects for a wee shopping trip. So Alex trotted along and he said, right, there's a wee game up at Warwick, I'm going to go and have a look. And without that chance sort of episode, he would never have sat in the stand at Warwick. So, I quite like him. And then I got a phone call Monday morning to come in for a trial. And so even playing boys club up to 16, 17 was just the only way I was going to end up bursting into the scene, because I couldn't have done it 2 years earlier. I couldn't move. I was, developing, as I've said. So all these lads that progressed at Porty High School and were at all the senior clubs, they were all the high flyers. They were up on the pedestals. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. Charlie was the only one that really kicked a ball of any note and stuck at it. Charlie King played at Brecon, St Johnstone, Livingston, really good player, really technical. Again, an early developer, but he was one that had a good mindset and stuck with it. The others just kind of toppled, and that's why there's a kind of phrase within academy football where the gold medalists rarely make it. And if you're a gold medalist and you're up on a pedestal with all your peers and everyone, saying, "Oh, so-and-so's away at Man United at Easter, and Newcastle are looking at him, and he's playing every week with Rangers up a level," and they're all up on a pedestal, and that pressure for a young lad can choke them like you can't believe. So the fear of not living up to that expectation makes them really anxious, and eventually, if they've not got a really strong mindset, they topple at some point, and that's when all the silver medalists, all their bodies have caught up with them, and that's when they're the ones that have had to fight. I had to dig in every training session, every game, because I couldn't run as fast as people at that point. So then you've got a real resilience and a mindset, so when your body does catch up, you fly, and the silver medalists come to the top, and it happens time and time again. So one of the real skills as a youth coach is, where I'm working in the area that I'm working now, is to make sure the real gold medalists get that resilience put into them, so their talent does kick on later on. That's a tenner, Gordy, for being late. £10 and £10 and 20 press ups. That's the deal. Everyone agreed.
Well done if you read the email.
I didn't get the emails there. Apologise for being late, guys, and spoiling your entertainment.
So those, so it was a really good period of youth football for me, but a tough one, and one that I would never have got through without just a kind of real, good, strong mind and a growth mindset that my old man had put into me.
So, you also, I remember you saying that, apart from, I went over and interviewed Laurie and for his testimonial for a programme interview, and the other, just Jim now.
Macintosh.
Yeah, hello Jim.
You're early.
No.
What can you do with him then, Laurie?
Well, we'll cut a deal for Jim.
You also explained that the day you signed for Raith Rovers, after you got the phone call for John Brownlee, Gary Wales left Links United as well, and went to Hamilton, and then through many years later came and played here as well. So signing for the Rovers, you used to get the train over, but you said the camaraderie amongst the young players and the hard work that you used to do was the making of you as a footballer. Yep.
Sorry. Absolutely. People kind of use the phrase the best days, the best days as a player when you're a young boy, because you've just got so much enthusiasm and hunger towards progressing and trying to achieve the things that you dream of. And, from that phone call on the Monday morning, it was John Brownlee that phoned me, so Alec had just given John the nod to get in touch with my dad, and my dad brought me over in his old banged up Alfa Romeo, and we drove over, and I remember just getting dropped off at the bottom of the ramp and walking up just like it was yesterday. And at that point the coaching staff was Jimmy Nicholl, Alex Smith, Terry Butcher, John Brownlee, and you're walking in from essentially, although Links United was a good boys club and it was very well run, you're walking in from boys club football into that environment, and you're kind of looking up at Terry Butcher, who you've seen on the telly with blood running down his head all these years, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I think from that moment on, I just sort of just clenched my fist and grabbed the opportunity and just gave it everything I had.
I think that's Jim, that must be your pacemaker making that noise. It's
my lug thing.
Your lug thing.
I think another part of that memory from the very early stage was that I didn't just come in and sign. I came in for a trial. So, I was in for maybe probably 2 weeks, and, now, from the other side of that position, you're watching everything. You're watching, how does he go about training? Is he a balanced player? Has he got good ball mastery? Is he good on both sides? Can he run? Is he a good mover? What's his attitude like? What's he like off the pitch? What's he like in the dressing room? Is he polite? Does he engage with you? Is there eye contact? So all these things was a 2-week period where you're getting assessed. But one thing in particular I remember was we played up at Dundee, and we were playing at Dundee Violet's ground. Sure, it was Dundee Violet, and it was just a reserve game. And because it was a reserve game, I was able to play as a trialist. And I think I maybe got the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But growing up in Edinburgh, my dad's side of the family were all Hearts fans. So I grew up as a Hearts fan. And John Robertson was my hero. John Robertson was on bloody loan at Dundee at that time, wasn't he? So I'm 17 and I'm on the bench and I'm watching John Robertson run about on the pitch for Dundee reserves against us. And it was just really surreal. So I'm on the touchline and John Brownlee says, right, you ready to go on? You're going to go on at left back. And he, after the game, he pulled me and he said, and this was all part of earning a contract. So he pulled me and he said, in that game, you were on the pitch ready to go on. What did you do when you went on? And I kind of thought about a million things that I did. Half of them that I wasn't happy with, half I was. And he said, no, the very, very first thing. And I said, I went on, got into position. He said, how did you do that? I said, well, I just ran over because it was the far side of the pitch to get over to left back. And he said, but how did you do it? And I just went, well, I sprinted over. And he went, exactly. He said, you sprinted over. You couldn't wait to get on the pitch. You ran all the way over and you got into position, you got ready. And just that, he noticed that. And he just held my hand and he just went, never ever lose that, son. So that was like an important moment for me just to carry on through my whole career. Just that I showed to him in one moment that I was there and I was going to take a chance and never lose it,
So you got signed as a young apprentice, but you had such a good intake with the guys that came in with you. Do you remember these guys and what capers you got up to? And also, what you as a young player, you would be assigned a senior pro to look after his boots and stuff like that. Who did you get?
So my first apprenticeship, first senior player to look after my apprenticeship was Keith Wright. So obviously I had been in the terrace in at Tynecastle and Easter Road watching Keith Wright, and he popped up a few goals. So then to be cleaning his boots was great as well. And a couple of funny stories about that. So the first team at that point had lovely club blazers, club suits. So they had back in the day, I think if we walked in with them just now, you'd look like a clown, but big, grey flannels with the navy blazer with the Rovers badge on it. And they looked absolutely diamond, but, the young lads just had tracksuits. So the senior squad got fitted out for new suits. Tailors came in, got them all sorted out, and I think it was Slaters from Glasgow at the time. And the senior players had to hand down the blazers and the flannels and stuff. So I got Keith Wright's old club suit. Now it was hanging off me, right? But I was so proud, and I've still got the blazer hanging up at the house. And ironically, so Keith's the SFA performance coach at Broughton High School in Edinburgh, and I'll go in and we've got a few. I'm working at Rangers now, as we'll get to, and we've got a few young players within the performance school at Broughton. So I'm in regularly seeing Keith. And I just took it in one day. I said, "Do you remember this, pal?" And we just showed him. I said, "You still got that?" So just lovely things that stick with you. And scrubbing away Keith's boots, and he was particular, to get the stripes nice and white. And it's back in the day when actually boot polish made a difference. Now they're all plastic. But we took enormous pride with those kind of things because we knew they were really important, and we knew that we didn't get measured on it, but we knew that would impress people if we took those details and our jobs around the club seriously, and guys like, so my first year apprenticeship from the youth team, there were 9 players that were taken on, and based on some of them being younger, some of them being older, some of them maybe being better prospects than others, there was a sort of tier of some lads got a year, some lads got 2, some lads got 3. And there was Kevin McLeish, Roddy Mohan, George Fotheringham, Dave McAnally, the Glasgow lads. So we had bus passes to get from our house into Waverley, and then we had a train pass to get from Waverley to Kirkcaldy. What a laugh. Oh my goodness. So the Glasgow boys, wide as a Clyde. We had never experienced it. You know, we were coming over from Edinburgh, you know, we're on a train, we'll just behave, you know, we'll sit there, we'll have a bit of banter. The Glasgow boys are one day to avoid paying the ticket, right? So I can't remember how it worked, but we had train passes, but at some point they had to pay every day. David McAnally's lying in the luggage rack above the table, hiding from the ticket officer.
Yeah.
They're pretending to fall asleep. They're just absolute capers, and great times. But we were in the dressing room one day, and we were told to wait in the dressing room. Everyone in the dressing room sit there. We changed in the away dressing room, and Terry Butch comes in. John Brownlee's behind them, and their faces are like that. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? So we're sitting there. Nobody's we've not done anything wrong. We can't be in trouble, because sometimes there was a bit of, a reset from them. So what's going on? So Terry Butcher, stone-faced, World Cup, semi-finalist, standing there in front of us saying, lads, you get paid we got paid £40 a week, right, as apprentices. So we got bus pass, train pass, £40 a week. Guys, I've got some news for you. The club can't pay you £40 a week anymore. So we're sitting there like this, and we're like, Christ, that's nothing, we'll just scrape by as it is. What are we going to do? And then the whole dressing room's dead silent. It's like club have informed us that, unfortunately, from this moment on, you won't be getting £40 a week. We're going to have to put a tenner on it and make it 50. And the whole dressing room just went up, and everyone's bouncing about. And it was like when we won the Champions League, they're piling on each other in the middle. Oh, it was fantastic. So we bumped up to £50 a week, and the place was just, what an atmosphere. Brilliant. But, loads of capers, loads of good fun. I remember Jay Steve?
Yeah.
So Jay Steen was a year or two older than us, and the young ones used to kind of wind him up and stuff. And he sort of got in the first team, and Jay was feeling a bit confident, as he did. And he'd got an agent. The agent was, saying this to him, saying that to him, and we were like, okay, Jay, brilliant. So Jay was really left-footed, as we remember. And Stevie Tosh and all these lads in the Paul Hartley's equal, all these lads in the first team dressing room were, they didn't suffer any fools. So Jay was getting a bit big for himself. So the agent sends him boots in. So the boots come in, and Jay's brought the box in, and he's put it down in the seat, and he's sitting there, my agent's got me some boots and that. What's your agent got you boys? This kind of. So somebody's opened the boots. Well, it wasn't 2 right feet, was it? So the whole place just destroyed Stevie Tosh nailed one of the right boots both the boots to the boot room wall. So he went to get them, and he couldn't get them off. Just brilliant stories, brilliant.
So you got your chance breaking into the first team. What was that like?
So looking back, I probably didn't appreciate how big an achievement it was because of the circumstances at the time, and because of the position I played. And it's only now when you reflect back on it, when you're young, you sort of, you just think you're flying, and you what's next? You want to kick on, and only now, even sitting speaking to my dad or sitting with my kids, you sort of think back to things. You're like, wow, that was like a brilliant achievement. We were struggling at the bottom of the league. We were playing away to Hamilton at Firhill when Hamilton played at Firhill when they were moving stadiums. The pitch was really, really poor. Jimmy and Nick and Alec would have been under real pressure because we were right down, and we needed a couple of wins, a couple of points to try and get safe. And I was 17, and I hadn't kicked a ball much because I'd only just come in 6 months earlier from boys club football. And I think it was, it sort of started at New Year because Hibs were in the league at the time, I think. I'm sure that was Hibs were in the Championship. And we played Hibs Easter Road on the New Year's Day fixture. And remember Graham
Robertson?
Graham Robertson that came up from Millwall?
Yeah.
So Graham Robertson was kind of a utility player. And Jimmy against Hibs, Jimmy had gone with Greg Robertson at the back. And after the game, we got beat. I think it was 4-0, I think. And I had come on late in the game against Mitchell Patalainen, who I later worked with as well. And Paco Luna, and I'm trying to remember these players. This is helping me forget my memory back. Brilliant. So it started after that game because Jimmy pulled me after the game, and he just quietly just said, "Son, I should have started with you." And I was like, "Thanks very much." In my head I was thinking, what did he just say that? Wow. And just the cleverness of that moment. Like, he didn't give any reason for it. He wasn't buttering me up. He wasn't trying to say something so that I didn't come and chat the door on the morning. Not that I would ever have done that. But there was nothing around it apart from him knowing that he was going to play me, and he wanted me to feel that I belonged on that pitch. So clever. So we'd been scalped for nothing at Easter Road, and I'm walking out thinking, man mountain in my head. I was walking out with my head bowed because you didn't dare smile. We'd just been scalped, but I was walking out thinking, he actually regrets not starting me in the game. And then we went to Thistle, and it was a relegation battle. I got us against Hamilton, and he stuck me in, started me in fullback, left back. And you don't thinking now, if I was a 30-year-old player going into that situation, you'd have butterflies, you'd be anxious, you'd be thinking about it because you knew how much was at stake. If you remember back to how the club was back then, we were month to month financially. We were, we didn't have, there was no sort of, social media wasn't generating commercial revenue. There was no, the club wasn't operating in a modern way that it operates now. So we were really dependent on, it was all or nothing league status for the survival of the club sometimes, some years. You guys remember more than me. But so the pressure there must have been huge, but you don't feel it when you're a young boy. You're brilliant, I'm playing. And we were 2-1 up, and Hamilton went down the left wing, and I was tucked in at the back post, looking at my right wing or whatever, I can't remember. And the ball got crossed in the box. It was a great ball, and Kevin Follering and Bibby was playing left centre back. And Bibby's he's going up for it, and he's just struggling for it. And I remember the back post just screaming, "Laurie's!" And Bibby just pulled out of it, and I headed the ball clear. And honestly, battered me with celebration after it. He came, "Brilliant, you!" And he's slapping me in the head, and he's shaking me. And just that one moment, that was at 2-1, late in the game. Big Graham Holmes was playing for Hamilton, who was a big bruiser up front, came obviously, had a period here. Derek Holmes. And I just got in front of him, cleared the ball, and that was us 1-2-0. And that was us, I think, safe in that game. I think that got us safe, or almost safe. And that was like just one moment that I remember. And I remember, Bibby celebrating that defensive moment and knowing that, right, okay, I made a good decision there. And, we just walked off the pitch, dressing room was buzzing, we were safe in the league. And I was 17, and for Jimmy to throw me in at that point with no experience, looking back, I was like, wow, I must have been doing really well. Because now, for a manager to put a 17-year-old in at fullback with all the pressures, it takes a lot of thinking before you make that decision for a young lad. So at the time I didn't think about it, but now I'm far more proud about it now than I was then, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So obviously the board make a decision to change managers. So tell us about the managers you played under as a young boy. You had Jimmy Nicholl, then you had John McVeigh, Peter Heatherson. Tell me about these guys. Calderon.
So, yeah, loads of different experiences. Jimmy Nick was fantastic. And when I still see him today, he's so warm and we have good catch-ups. Alex Smith's in Australia at the moment, and I've been in touch with him over the last year. I wrote him a letter when he left to emigrate with his family, because we've got so much to thank him for. I didn't work with him long enough. That was my only regret. So I had played under Jimmy Nicholl for a season, and some of those young lads I mentioned, we were all together abroad on holiday in the summer. So we were in Crete, and myself, Chris Mill was a policeman in Kirkcaldy now.
Big ginger hair guy.
Aye, Chrissy was a great lad. Roddy and a couple others were in Crete, and I was at the side of the pool. And, you get everything on your phone now before anyone can tell you. But back then, Roddy came back from the shop and he slapped the daily record down on the Sun Lounger. And I sort of looked at him, I was like, "What are you doing?" And I flipped over, back page. So this is us, and bearing in mind, well, I'll give you the context in a minute, but back page, Jimmy Nicholl had been sacked. So our worlds fell apart. One, because we idolised him. Two, because he was the one that was giving us a professional contract. We had been offered professional contracts. We had, we'd agreed them, but we hadn't signed them. So we were thinking, what happens? There's 9 of us that are set to become first year professionals. The club had just wiped out Jimmy, wiped out Alec, Terry Butcher, John, a lot of them I think left. So you can imagine how vulnerable you feel. So on the phone back home, and there wasn't anything we could do, but it was a big shock. And I knew that I had made my debut. I had a few appearances, and I was, in football terms, I had kicked on a little bit more than others. So my contract was still not for a lot of money at all, but it was more than the others, and Jim Nicholl had recognised that, and he was fair. So he'd said, look, this is your contract. It's a 2-year. I think it could have been a 3-year if I wanted. Normally this is the scale for the first year professionals, but you've done really well. You've made your debut, and you're going to get a little bit more. So to give you context, I think it was about £300 a week. Now it was £120 for the other first year apprentices, between 120 and 175. And I came back, and that was ripped up, and it was just on the same terms as everyone else. So being young, not having a family, not having a mortgage, it's far less of an issue, and you just say, well, if that's life and that's what's happened, I'm still signing the contract because I'm still a Rovers player and I want to be here. But that was a big kind of moment where I could have looked one way and maybe not been happy with that, or come back and just said, well, no problem, let's get the boots on, let's play, and so that was a really tough part to deal with, that first change of manager. And coming back, John McVeigh was a completely different style, and you have to respect there's no right or wrong in football. You have to respect that everyone's different, and but it was very, very different, very upfront and abrasive, and you knew what he was thinking, put it that way. You didn't always know where you stood. He might have thought that, but you were certainly what he was thinking, and he would tell you straight up, and that's fine. Maybe that did allow us to know where we stood. But I had done well, and I think we played Rangers in the lead up to the end of the season, maybe in a fundraiser, and I had played against Kanchelskis. And I was like, Jesus, that was some experience. And they'd watched that back, and I remember them sitting in the office saying, oh, we watched you, playing against Rangers, and you did really well against Kanchelskis, and we see it, we see you do a big part, future, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of days later, Sasha Openiel signs, and Sasha was, a brute and a more experienced player. And I played a couple of games, but then for most of the season didn't play. But at that point, John actually tried to get me to leave the club and to sign an exit. So there was like maybe 5 or 6 of the first year pros that were just wanted to kind of clear out, weren't in his plans. And we got taken into the office one by one. Right, there's your release form. Right, you're not going to play here. You need to move on. Time's up. There you go. Sign that there. A couple of the lads did sign it. And I just, you're nervous, you're shaking, you're getting news that's horrible. You're in front of someone that's really, it's an uncomfortable situation right in your face, and for some reason, just as a young man, I just sort of said, I wouldn't sign anything without speaking to my dad. I just said that. So I left the office, and just by being able to do that, I was able to speak to people who gave me advice at the time and speak to my dad, and they were like, you're not signing anything. So that was a difficult period, because at that point they made my life really difficult. And I was still a young player who'd been good enough to make my debut. I felt confident in being able to help the team, but just wasn't in the plans, and that's just the way it works. Fought away. John McVeigh left, Peter Thurston then took over, and I knew that Peter always liked me behind the scenes, but maybe couldn't express that with John being, the manager. He just had to fall in line with John, and that's absolutely, I've had to do that, sometimes, because you have to, the boss is the boss, and you've got to make sure that you follow in. So when John left, I kind of got a new lease of life with Peter, and kicked back into the team, and Peter used me quite a bit. And then after Peter, I think it was Antonio. Yeah. Did Antonio come straight in?
Yeah.
Antonio was fantastic. So still keep in touch with Paquito. I've been in touch, not for a while with Antonio, but it was everything I needed. It was a more tactical approach. It was a more intelligent approach. And this is nothing against previous, and not so much Jimmy, because I only worked with Jimmy for a short period, and I know Jimmy was brilliant with all that kind of stuff. But after John and Peter, I really engaged with the stuff that we were working on with Antonio. Antonio was a young man at the time. He was player manager 35, I think.
Yeah.
So to be able to do what he did at 35 and play every week was just brilliant. And it was just...
You won the league.
We won the league. We played brilliantly that year. We won the league and had a really good season. And that was the season that St Mirren were interested in me. And I remember coming back from Stranraer on the bus, I think 8.5 hour journey or something on that windy road. So Antonio pulled me and he got me to the side and he just said, listen, we've had a bit of interest from St Mirren. St Mirren would like to sign you next season. And my initial straight away was like, I don't want to go, stay here. And he was like, well, okay, but I think you need to think about it. I think, and he obviously knew as a footballer, you have to consider these things and, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being emotional, but you have to look at what's best for your development and your career. And he knew the club at the time behind the scenes was really fragile. He knew that they were going to be bringing in a few foreign players and it might be that it was something to consider. And in the end, it was a good move and it was something that I had to do for myself and my family. But that was a moment where that was a moment I remember because I was disappointed to be leaving that tutelage from Antonio, but it was just a new chapter for me, John. So enjoyed that, and then 2 years at St Mirren, came back for a year under Gordon DL. Sean Dennis phoned me up and just said, "Would you come back?" And I had a couple of different options, but decided to come back. That was a tough year. There was a lot of challenges there, and it was football is about opinions and it is about feelings and emotions and stuff, and and without saying anything, I do know that I played really well under Antonio because I had a relationship and a good connection, and that is something that just squeezes out those extra few percent in you, because you're always giving your best, but your absolute best is always reduced by interference in football, and that's sport in general. So psychologists will say that your performance is your potential minus any interference. So if you've not got that real connection or real trust or real sort of energy from a manager, that might affect your performance a little bit. It could be something like you're under the weather, you've got an injury, or your dog died last night. These are all interference that can affect your absolute performance. So I came back for a year, then went away and studied a couple of things and played part-time for a year, and then John McGlynn phoned me up. And being completely honest and candid, when John phoned me, I was like, okay, thinking about coming back for a third spell, thinking about the challenges that would bring, and the fact that I had left after only a year the second spell. I was thinking, okay, is that right for me? Is that right for the club? Is that going to be well received? Is it going to work out? And I wanted a little bit of time to think about that. And I went away and spoke to my family. I was like, so that, I'm part of me is at Starks Park, and I had a great rapport with the fans, and the fans know that I give everything. It'll be absolutely fine. And I phoned John and I just said, John, I'm in. And that was just a brilliant decision, because we had a great run, great relationship with John and Paul Smith. We obviously won League Two. We got to the Scottish Cup semi-finals. I feel that I contributed loads to the team on the pitch, off the pitch. I instantly got the rapport back with you guys and with the club, and it was the best period of my career.
I remember we were playing Stirling Albion in a playoff match, and you were at the game, and I think everybody was saying, come on, come back to the club, because there'd been kind of rumours, and so we were all delighted to come back, apart from Jim. No, we were delighted for you to come back.
Well, the Stirling Albion plays two parts in that story, because I was playing at Stirling Albion in the lead up to coming back for a season. I was playing at Stirling Albion, and John McGlynn and Paul Smith were coming to watch me in a game. So John phoned me and just said, we just having a chat on the phone. He said, well, Paul and I are coming to the game tonight, so good luck. And was that no against the Pars, and we turned them over 3-1. So that was at Fourth Bank, and I played really well that night, and obviously that helped John make his decision. And we'd already kind of agreed things, but he was like, right, let's get it done, come on, win you, and let's get it sorted. So it was dead easy, and it was just a brilliant move. Learned so much from John, love him as a person. I'll keep in touch with him forever, and it was just the best period after that.
So coming back, you know, we had success. Your goal. Tell us about you. If I remember rightly, you scored a similar goal to the one up at Dundee against East Fife in a game out here, didn't you? Do you remember a front post header?
Well, there was Dunfermline.
Dunfermline as well.
To be
All
fair,
right.
there were a few, but it wasn't coincidence. You know, the one at Dundee especially. I mean, first of all, in the lead up to that game, that was just special all round, special for so many reasons. You know, we arrive at Dens Park and, you know, there was Rovers fans and scarves kicking about all early in the street, you know, way before kick-off. We come out for the warm-up, half the stand's full in the warm-up. There's noise, there's just a real buzz, a real feeling. And looking back, I don't think there was any chance we wouldn't have come away from Dens Park that day without a victory. So the momentum was building. We got off to a flying start. Stevie Simmons scored the volley. We were going down the hill to the fans, and I just, you know, remember, I think Thierry Gattuso got fouled on the right hand side. There was a bit of kind of few minutes of waiting for Alan Walker to get over and get set up and take the free kick. And when, you know, that I seemed as if I had acres of space at the front post, but it wasn't coincidence. You know, I would wait, so I would be with my marker. It was Eddie Malone that day, and I would distract my marker so his eyes were off me, and Alan would be ready to take the free kick, and he'd be watching me, and we would try and drag people away, so we'd leave that space free. And I'm saying, Al, you just look at my movement, look at when I go, and you step on and take it and deliver front area. So all I would do is I'd wait, and if all it would take is Eddie Malone to look somewhere else away from me, and I was off. That was me away. So, and sometimes I would even say, what the hell's he doing? And Eddie would turn round and I'd be off. So it just gave you 3-4 yards, and if the ball's good, you're there, nobody's recovering. So it wasn't coincidence that I got space at the front stick, and it wasn't anything weird and wonderful. It was just being clever in the box, and it was just, you know, making sure that I knew how hard it was to mark a player at corner, and so if I knew that, I knew I could make it really difficult for someone else to mark me. And just little tricks of the trade. So I would just wait till his eyes were off me, and I was off. And by the time he turned round, there was no catching me, no getting back. And if the ball was good, it was in the back of the net.
But it was a great cup run, winning, beating Aberdeen.
Fantastic. I just remember right the final whistle at Dens Park. Me and Bert Murray, Grant Murray came over, and we just jumped into each other's arms, hugged each other. Man, we're going to Hampden. You know, it was just that feeling as a player of knowing you were going to be going to a semi-final and walking out in a Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden. It was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, one of my best memories.
So you then get granted a testimonial. I've got something here that I must wear. Just not on the other one.
What's coming now? Don't know if I want to hear that, John.
No, we had a photo there for the.
Right.
We're all Laurie Ellis.
You've brought
There we are.
That was brilliant. A great one.
That's what we want. We want a team of Laurie Ellises. No, we did a photo shoot out there with Ellis's taxis and you to advertise it. But it was a surreal moment, wasn't it? Because John McGlynn had left, and then Hearts had won the Scottish Cup, so they brought the cup back with them that day, and it must have been a big thing for you playing against Hearts out there in your testimonial.
Oh, it was fantastic. For a number of different reasons. So you've mentioned a few of them. Obviously, you know, being a Hearts fan as a boy, my family all been Hearts fans, although they were converted to Rovers fans quite quickly. So the connection between the Rovers and Hearts for me instantly was the perfect match. A pre-season game just after Hearts winning the Scottish Cup meant there were a lot of Hearts fans that came over. I think it was kind of publicised before that you know, I was a Hearts fan, so the Hearts fans knew that connection as well. And but you know, now being a Rovers fan and playing in that game and having, you know, John McGlynn coming back as Hearts manager, a lot of the Rovers fans wanted to come back to see him. So it just all came together, and it just felt like it just couldn't have gone any better, really.
Part for the result.
But in the lead up to that, though, the other big personal thing for me was that I had my jaw injury 10 weeks before that. So that was, at that point, to play a game and to be able to head a ball and to be able to compete in that game so quickly after, it was maybe 10 or 12 weeks, I think it was 10. Anyway, to play in that game so quickly after that.
Just remind us about the injury you got at Falkirk that day.
So just really unlucky. I was playing centre back, and there was a player at Falkirk who used to play at Hibs, an Algerian chap called Farid El Alagouli, and he was a nice chap. He was a warrior, and we had tough games. And he was very good in the air, and I was never the tallest as a centre back, but I had a really good spring, so I could get away with it, and I was sharp. So I always had to make sure I timed my jump. And it was a goal kick to Falkirk, and the keeper was ready to shell it right down the middle of the pitch. So I've got myself in position and I've jumped or stepped forward to try and time my jump to win the header. And just as I was doing that, another Falkirk player, Willie Gibson, decided to stick his bum into me to put me off balance. So it was deliberate, but it was part of the game. He wasn't meaning to get me injured, but he stuck his bum, which was a fair size. So he stuck his bum into me. So I'm intending to jump, but I'm now stumbling. And Farid El Alagouli was coming in from the side, so he's running in from the side to jump, and his knee was going up as my jaw was going down. So I was flattened out cold, it was shattered. And to be fair to Big Farid, he came to the hospital that night, and I've got a clear memory of being in the hospital bed at Forth Valley Hospital, obviously in bits, sitting there, drugged up to the max. John McGlynn at the end of the bed and my dad at the end of the bed. And my dad said afterwards it was the hardest part for him because of his whole parenthood, because I must have asked the same question like 150 times. So obviously my brain was bouncing.
What was that?
And
Did we win?
Well, it was the same questions, sorry. So it was like, did we win? What was the score? Did I play well? Did we win? What was the score? Did I play well? Did we win? What was the score? And like he said 150 times. I just kept asking it. And I remember John sort of saying, yeah, Laurie, we won. You played well. And that must have been the 100th time he'd answered it probably. So they were, that was tough. And Farid came that evening as well, although I was sparkled. So got moved from there to St John's in the kind of plastic surgery unit in Livingston. And I ended up being in there a whole week, which was a long time for a kind of jaw break. But they repaired it, then they had to open it back up, repair it again. And so to play a game so quickly after that, I was just like, I'm making it. And the minute the surgeon said, provided you're fine and the dizziness is gone, because for a few weeks, the minute you start jogging, you're just like, So once I got after that and got back, that was my target, and I was on the pitch. So that was like a personal achievement. And obviously photos of my daughter Ava, who's now 14. She's in my arms. So great memories, lovely. I don't know if the old noggin might suffer in a few years' time for it, but we'll see about that.
So you then got, with John moving on, you and Bert got the gig as the management team. What was that like, stepping up to management?
Yeah, it was really, really tough, really challenging, because it's a whole new career, a whole new profession. It's not, it's very linked, obviously, but it's a completely different skill set. You've got, for Grant to step into that and still be playing, having been a player, stepping into being a leader, a manager, it's just a massive transition, a massive jump. And knowing what I know now and having gone through lots of different experiences, you're really just sinking or swimming. You go through all the licenses, you do your badges, you work as an aspiring young coach, but you don't cover 20% of what's actually involved when you're in those shoes. And all of the factors and all of the expectation, all of the pressures, all of the man management, the organisation, the coaching, the tactical work, it's really, really tough. And Grant had several years, was it 3, 4? So, that's a long period in management when you think about it. And we won the Ramsden's Cup, and we had some really good seasons. We had a difficult season at the end, which after which he left, which was really tough on him and his family, and me and my family. Grant and I are still good friends. And that's the downside that comes with football. It's the nature of the job, and you know what you sign up for.
But thinking about actually having the skills and the tools to do that job at that time, no chance. You know, you always take the opportunity and you always look into it and you always give your absolute best. But nobody in this room would progress through their career and then jump a huge level without being pre-trained or pre-prepared or having some experience working under someone as a mentor for a few years, or, being able to make mistakes without the pressure of the actual firing line. So football's unique in that sense. People say, oh, he's been a great player, he's a great servant, he'll be a great manager. It's like, okay, he might be, but he might be a brilliant manager, but gets dealt certain unfortunate things, or something doesn't work for him, or, there's no certainty, and you are just learning the job from minute one, and you've got to adapt, you've got to adjust. From my point of view, going from a player into a coach, and even later on from an assistant into a head coach, that transition is difficult because you've got a completely different relationship in one role to the relationship you need to have in the next role. And that, so, moving clubs into a different role, no problem, because you're dealing with new relationships and you can forge those new relationships from a blank canvas. But when you've been the middleman and the glue, and you've been going around everyone picking them up and understanding their problems and their difficulties, and then you're the one having to have a different conversation with that player, all of a sudden they sort of look at you like, well, who are you? You're that person, you're the same person, but you've just got to deliver different messages in a different way. That's really challenging. It's a real skill set that you cannot guarantee that you've got just from being a good player. And so many top players, international players, dabble in management and really struggle with it because it's a completely different job, a completely different profession, different skill set.
So you've been in management yourself. You had a spell at Dundee United, and then you had your period with Queen's Park. Has that been something you've enjoyed?
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really challenging, but I've loved it and I've taken loads from it. So when I was assistant at Dundee United, Ray McKinnon left and I took 2 games in interim charge, and we won 2-0 down at Dumbarton, and we won 2-1 against St Mirren at Tannadice, and that's when St Mirren won the league that year. Jack Ross was manager, so Jack and I were on the touchline, and we beat them that night, and we played really well, and that took us joint top of the league. And after the game, Stephen Thompson was chairman at Dundee United at the time, and Stephen pulled me into a wee side office, and he was just like, look, we've been really delighted with the kind of impact you've had. You've obviously had a positive effect on the players. If you were to get an experienced assistant, would you consider the job? And it was an informal chat, and it wasn't an offer, but it was just like a question, and it was just, we're happy with how things are going. Is it something you'd consider? And just at that time, with the size of Club Dundee United is, and the speed that things need to move up there, and the age of my young family, and then I knew the impact it would have on them. I decided that it wasn't something I wanted to plunge into at that point, but I wanted to stay part of the club. And I understand absolutely why I made that decision at the time. There are little elements of regret that I didn't just go for it, but knowing the coach I am now compared to then, I know that I would be winging a lot of it as well, just because of what I've discussed, about how, so much to deal with. So it would have been a tough challenge, but it would have been an amazing thing to be able to say I had done, but it wasn't ever offered formally, and I decided against it personally, so that was fine. And then I worked under Shabba Laszlo at Dundee United, which was interesting and entertaining. I still, Shabba still gives me a buzz now and again, and we have a wee chat, or he has a chat and I listen. But that was funny, and that kind of opened your eyes to how sometimes you just have to bite your tongue and fall in line sometimes, because we've been the opposite Paradise, and Shabba would be saying, right, okay, what do you think this for tomorrow? What do you think for this weekend? And it'd be 3 or 4 of us, 4 and 5 of us sitting having a blend. Oh, I think we should maybe do this. No, what are you saying that? What are you talking about? We can't do that. Blah blah blah. And you're like, okay, fair enough. 15 minutes later, well, half an hour later, we come back around. He's like, I think we should do this. We're like, just talked about that half an hour ago. So, it had to be him that said it. So that's fine. It was all good fun. And learned different things from Shabba as well. And so that was a good experience. And then left there, and Ray phoned me to take up an assistant position at Queen's Park. So enjoyed working with Ray again at Queen's Park, and we had a really good season, won the league. And Ray and Leanne Dempster spoke in the summer after winning the league, and for whatever reasons they decided that they weren't going to continue as colleagues, and Ray was going to leave the club. And Ray and Darren Taylor and Stuart Garden left. Leanne immediately pulled me into an office and just said, "Look, we want some consistency. We understand if you want to leave as well, but personally, I couldn't afford to walk away from a job, and Ray had always given me his blessing, like at Tannadice as well when he left. He said, you make sure you do what's right for you. Don't worry about, you've got a contract, you can't walk away from anything." So it was always with his blessing. So I was kind of in limbo at Queen's Park, and about a week to 10 days went past, and we'd had a few discussions about things, and Leanne was talking about my role, and I had never handed a CV in, I'd never broached the subject, but we had a conversation one day where it just became, I said, there's a lot of people applying for this job, and a lot of people that are desperate to take on this head coach job at Queen's Park because there's so much development going on at the club, and these people would not have entertained Queen's Park a year ago, and that annoys me, that angers me, because I've done a lot of work as part of that development. And she said, I can't give you everything on the kind of the list of requisites, but I can give you this and this, and the other things I'll adjust and I'll learn on. And she phoned me on the Friday, just saying, I want you to think about, we've had discussions at board level, I want you to think about over the weekend about the possibility of becoming a head coach. So I'm not daft, right? And I looked at the whole picture, and I knew that it was a no-brainer for them. If it went well, they would be their master stroke. If it didn't, I knew that was a kind of stopgap in a certain sense, because Willie Hockey, who's doing a lot of great work at Queen's Park, is well connected with Owen Coyle, and I was already speaking to Owen Coyle about just kind of bits of advice here and there, so that mentorship was offered, and so it was all well connected, and I knew it was just an opportunity that I had to decide if I was going to go for, to benefit from myself and take the experience from, and not worry about how anything else was going to work out. In the end, I did loads of good work at Queen's Park, and we were on top of the league after a third of the season, and the remit kind of in pre-season was, we don't need to jump another league, we've just gone a league, so we don't need to jump another one, but if we can maybe sneak into the playoffs at the end of the season, we'll give it everything we've got. Brilliant, great. Top of the league after a third of the season, and naturally everyone's goalposts move a little bit, and we think, well, this could be quite good, this could be like a double promotion, we could move well. So then you hit a sticky period, and I was dealing with COVID as a first time manager. I was dealing with COVID, we couldn't train properly, we were testing every day, we had players ruled out all the time, and in my final game we'd hit a period of draws, and we were maybe third in the league, 4 points off top, something like that, still in a good position. But 3 of my starters were ruled out for COVID, playing Airdrie away. We had a young 16-year-old goalkeeper on the bench. We adjusted things a little bit for him. We got beaten 1-0, and I got the bill the next day, unfortunately. So, that's just how, you learn from that. It was really tough at the time, tough for a good period after that. And then you sort of reflect and you look back at what you did, and you look back at a lot of the things that you put in place that are still benefiting the club. We developed a training ground, the environment was great, the staff that I brought in, a lot of them are still there doing key jobs at the club. So, really pleased in terms of the experience and development I got from that. Would have loved for it to have lasted longer, but you just move on.
Yeah, and now you've got a coaching job with the Rangers, but also you get called in to work with the Scottish youth teams as well, so it must be something you're enjoying at the moment. Yeah,
I've been at Rangers 2 years now, and I've been in my current position, which is lead under 15 and under 16 coach. So I've got a busy time. So I've got my weekends. Saturdays I'm leading the under 15s programme. Sundays I'm leading the under 16s programme, and we've got a busy week of training through the week as well. So there are challenges with that at the moment, because I don't get time the weekend with my kids and family. So that's tough. But the job's great. The club is a fantastic club on the inside. Like how everyone's got their football rivalries and things, but everyone can appreciate how big a club Rangers is until you're on the inside of it. You see the operation and the people involved, and the way the sort of environment works, and the focus and the care and the detail that goes into the kids within the academy. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's led by Zed Jacobs, who's a really clever, young, adventurous, kind of ambitious Belgian who's been great to work with. And he's recently brought over a head of football academy, a chap called Zurab Amirian, who's just worked at come from Leuven in Belgium as well. So top people, loads of knowledge getting passed around, working with people that have been within the academy there for 10, 15 years, some of them, and really, really enjoying it. It's a bit of travelling through Mulgai, which is, you get used to, but, I've done the travelling for years anyway, so that's fine. And the Scotland thing, Billy Stark got in touch with me last year to see if I'd be able to help out with some Scotland under-19 trips. We went to Spain, to Pinatar, where we played Republic of Ireland and Portugal, and then he took me on the qualifying trip to Bulgaria, where we played Bulgaria, Andorra and Serbia. So really great experience doing that as well, and working with some top young talents from all over the UK.
Right, listen, that's been wonderful. Has anybody got any questions for Laurie?
What would your future ambition be then, Laurie, in terms of soccer
Well, my future ambitions, I've always found it hard to just nail one thing, because I know how fluid football is, and I want to make sure that I'm always doing a good, important job in whatever role I'm in. I'm finding that within the academy at Rangers. Would I like to step back into first team work at some point? Yes, possibly. Do I feel that my job at the moment is fulfilling? Absolutely. So I'm in a good place. I'm happy with, although the work-life balance is tricky family-wise, I'm happy that the fact that I get some school holiday time with the kids now, which is good, because the academy schedule follows that. Are there things I don't miss about first team work? Yes. Are there things that I really miss about it? Absolutely. So I kind of, I would love to be back involved at some point. There's always, you guys know my affiliation with this club, and I've got good relationships with other clubs I've played with as well. And I just want to make sure that I can be the best that I can be in everything I do. I think that's a big mantra that we use within the academy at Rangers, and I've taken a lot of that on myself as well. Just always be your best version. And I have absolutely learned so much over the last 2 or 3 years working in a completely different environment with different challenges, different age groups, which absolutely have made me a better coach to coach at any level. So that's been brilliant, and I think provided I still have that attitude towards developing and always becoming better, and always making sure I take on the next challenge and the next challenge, and I think that'll stand me in good stead. And whatever comes, I know I'll be taking it on well prepared and ready for anything that I decide to do. So it's a bit of a kind of vague answer, but it's a passionate answer as well. That I'll just always be ready to take on the next challenge and be the best that I can be in whatever I do, and wherever that may be.
Yep. Anyone else?
Laura, you've spoken about your career and everything, right, in your football career. And you spoke on the football side, but you've never mentioned anything about the column that you used to do. I think it was in the 5-3 Press.
Laurie Ellis. Aye.
And I wonder if you had any aspirations in that school.
Well, I really enjoyed that. Matthew Elder got in touch with me. No, it was before Matthew Elder. It was chap that was the editor before. Gordon Holmes.
Yeah.
So Gordon got in touch with me and just that, I don't know why he chose me or whatever, but he must have thought I could put a few words together every week. So he just he came up with the idea, and I sort of took it on to with a bit more detail. So I sort of said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it properly. I'll write it. You can correct any grammar or spelling or whatever, but I'll write it, and I'll give you a column every week. So we did, and I think he quite enjoyed the fact that I engaged with it well, and obviously if you remembering it meant that a few people must have read it, which was good.
But we don't have anything like that now.
Yeah, well, no, I really enjoyed doing it, and it was. I'll need to maybe see if my mum's got any wee bits in the scrapbook. Catch up with it again. Laurie's lines. Although I did get a lot of stick from my pals about that. What's in the lines this week?
Right. Anyone else?
Do you think it's more difficult now as a young prospect manager to get a job in Scotland with all these incomes coming in?
What makes it more difficult?
I think it's against young managers coming through.
Yeah, it's challenging. So
The Aberdeen manager's not going to be a young manager, is it?
no, I mean, so even 20 years ago, there were always a lot of applications for every job. That because if you've got three or four players at every club retiring every year, you can't find coaching jobs for all those players. So it's always very competitive. Now it's ultra competitive, and it's going to be a challenge, which really, if you look upon it in the correct way as a coach, it means that you've got to be as prepared and as kind of rounded a coach as you can possibly be. So you can offer lots of different aspects in a role. So if you're just going in based on your playing career and you've not had any coaching experience, then you're going to be very lucky to get a job. If you go in with all the playing experience you've had, but show an appreciation of dipping out into different environments and learning from things that you never experienced, and obviously going through your badges, you need your licenses, but showing an ability to be flexible and agile and think about dealing with different people, different characters. I think you've got to be multidimensional, and you need a bit of fortune as well. You need to be the right person at the right time that fits that role. That we all know the power of kind of fans at the moment, and the bigger you go up, that power and pressure becomes even more. So there will be, I guarantee you, there will be people that interview brilliantly for jobs and seem to be the right person, but maybe because of a previous club that they played for, or maybe because they've not managed at a certain level, maybe the fan backlash and the perception of that appointment might then change some people's opinion within the club. So that might be that could be any club at any level. But so there's loads of different factors, but it's so competitive now, and that's why I'm enjoying a job within the academy as well, because that's provided me a route to stay in the game and to learn and keep developing and challenge myself. I get challenged every single day. There's no resting point. You're not just going and throwing a few cones down and playing a wee game. We're working to a strict curriculum. We're constantly evolving that. There's loads of pressures for me to deliver and be the best coach I can be. And I think, a lot of that counts by word of mouth and by people learning about what you're doing in a certain job, so that when you go for something else, everyone knows everyone in football. So they're going to do their homework and they're going to speak to people. And if you've been diligent and you've developed and shown good moments in a job like I'm doing, that's going to stand you in good stead rather than just sitting waiting for a job. Because, so again, to answer your question, absolutely, it's really tough. There's loads of people going for every single job, and loads of really good people. And also some people that you might feel you could compete with, but maybe for whatever reason they're ahead of you in some people's eyes. So there's lots of challenging factors in that. Definitely tough, very tough. My mother-in-law said to me once, she was like, could you not just? I can't remember. I think it was at Queen's Park when it was a difficult period. And she was like, could you not just go and get another job? At another club, right? And I was like, well, okay, when you worked, so she's retired now. I said, when you worked, you could have left your job and looked at 200 opportunities in finance in Edinburgh the next day. So if I leave my job, there are 4 clubs in Edinburgh if you include Spartans. Hearts and Hibs are way out the equation. You've got Edinburgh City and you've got Spartans. That's 4 jobs, and none of them are available. And then 2 of them are way above me at the moment. So she's like, it was just a bit of a reality check for her. Like, if you're out at work, there's not a paper with lots of jobs available. You're really scratching to make sure you're ready for an opportunity that comes up, and then you've got 100 people trying to nudge you out the way.
The catchment seems to be getting wider and wider. Warner, Montgomery and Hibs. I've heard Dan Ferguson being rumoured for the Aberdeen job.
Wow, yeah. That's it, and all top people, all fantastic, figures in the game and appointments, and I genuinely wish anyone that gets a job in football all the very best and hope that it works out for them, because I know how tough it is and I know how many factors are out with your control. And in any other walk of life, if you're really hard working, really diligent, supportive of other people, developing all the time, you'll succeed and you'll work up a ladder within a company, within a framework of any business organisation. Within football, that's not guaranteed, because a lot of factors at the mercy of other people, and you could be doing all these things but still not succeed, and that's a real challenge. But it's a challenge. You either say, "Oh, I don't fancy that," or you say, "Okay, well, bring it on. Let's see what we can do."
Laurie, what about at Christmas time when you have family? What's Christmas like in a professional football?
As a player, it's well, Christmas is brilliant with a family, regardless or without. It's brilliant, great time. But as a player, there are lots of things that the fans don't see. So out of 18 years of playing, and then 8 years in first team coaching, I probably had about 8 Christmas days or 10 Christmas days off, 8 maybe. So most Christmas days you're in training because you've got a game Boxing Day or you've got to prepare for the 27th. So your Christmas isn't relaxed in the same sort of social sense as other people. It's a tough period because you've got, football doesn't stop at Christmas, everyone loves it, so it's game midweek, so there's a period where it's tough on the body as well. But certainly schedule wise it's difficult, but you just adjust and your family just get used to it, and you always find a way, I'd get up at the crack of dawn, open the prezzies, we maybe start training a little bit later, so that boys with families could have that moment in the morning. Then you'd jump away and fortunately avoid the kitchen duties for a couple of hours and then come back and your dinner was ready. So I suppose in a sense it was brilliant.
Right, listen, Laurie's heading off to Milgai in a few minutes, so he's got a pressing schedule through there today. So can we just give a big round of applause for...
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Top man. Top man.